Long ago, when the world still breathed magic as naturally as the wind through the leaves, there arose those who believed wonder was something that could be owned. They were not kings nor gods, but they built as if they were both. From the heart of the land once rich with color and song, they raised their temple, an impossible thing of blackened, lifeless stone. It clawed its way through the heavens, spires crooked and grasping, as though it thought to seize the sky itself. Where its shadow fell, the lights dimmed, and the air grew heavy, reluctant to linger. These individuals did not create magic. They reaped it from the land itself. They bound what was meant to roam free, siphoning the living pulse into cold walls and hollow rituals. Year by year, the soil hardened. Rivers slowed, then stilled. Green gave way to grey, and warmth abandoned the earth as quietly as a dying breath. In time, even life refused to remain. No beast tread the ground, no root dared to break the surface. And within the towering temple its disciples endured. Their bodies persisted, but their souls had been leached thin, leaving behind little more than echoes of humanity wrapped in flesh. The world remembered what they had taken, and it had waited until it could return. I hope you enjoyed that little intro into today's build. While working through this chaos block, I felt a bit inspired to lean more into storytelling, as I do that as another side hobby, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. The block that was chosen for me was one that I wouldn't normally gravitate towards, but for some reason, I felt like it was calling me towards a very specific kind of structure. Once I leaned into it, the build started to take shape on its own. I knew I wanted some really gothic architecture, but as I was building, it really called me towards a cult-like following of maybe something that was siphoning the earth. And as it took shape, I really started to love the idea more, and I started adding more elements into the build itself. Now, that's not to say that this build wasn't daunting. It's nothing that I've ever built before, and I'm not very proficient at churches. So it was definitely a shot in the dark whether or not this would look visually interesting at the end. I had a couple of Pinterest references up, and I was using a monochromatic color palette, so really nothing could go wrong so long as I got the overall shape right. I wonder if by the end of this video, you guys will have the same cult-like pull that I did when seeing this build complete, because honestly, whether intentional or not, this build definitely screams, I'm some magical cult from some fantasy book. Now, I knew the most important part of any of these ancient looking churches was the embellishments on the roof, and unfortunately there's not really much you can do with the blocks that I had chosen detail wise, so I kept it relatively minimal and just hoped that the rest of the accents that I was adding in these like corner flourishes and pops of color would be enough to translate that ancient looking church feel. I was trying to get a little fancy with the roof, as you can see here, but it just wasn't working out, so I really had to settle for that minimalist nature that I was talking about earlier, which is something that I wasn't super happy with in the moment, but I think in the end it ended up working in the favor of the minimalist cult vibes that I was going for. Now, I'm really curious as to what you guys will think at the end of this one. Does the story come through in the build, or did I just disappear a little too far into my own lore? If you have any ideas what this structure used to be, or what kind of magic was in it before the cultists took it, let me know in the comments. If there's a block that you think deserves its own chaos build moment, drop that too. I might just regret listening, but it's always worth it to have you guys interacting and suggesting your brilliant ideas down there. Now, you're going to see a big bumble of mine that I made where I forgot to press record after getting up from my computer, so literally about 15 minutes plus worth of footage was just completely gone. So I built up this tower and I wanted to keep it somewhat minimalist again, but I wanted to have it dominating the space. I really like the idea of having a lot of natural light for this build, so that's why you see these copious amounts of windows throughout the entire thing. I was looking at a lot of churches and natural light seems to be one of the main thing that they go for. So even though this is a cult building, I still wanted to keep to that church-based roots. Adding these final details really started to pull this build together. I knew I wanted the light sources to be a little bit sparse as I wanted this build to be mostly in gloom, but I wanted the roof line illuminated as that was where the main color of the build was. Adding these banners by the windows also added another element of that cultism vibe, and I think it really brought the front face of the build and some of the the side windows together. It ended up being very visually interesting, and I think it is something that I want to include more in builds going forward. It was at this point in decoration too that I knew that I wanted a desiccated land. So I really fought with a lot of my demons not to add any plant life or anything growing up the side, as I knew that that would take away from the main vibe that I was trying to go for once I did the terraining. I added in the pale moss, and as soon as I put the block down, I knew, oh yes, this was definitely going in the right direction. I added some rocky terrain in just to break up the monotony of the textures before deciding that the scene was a little bit empty. So that's when I came up with the idea of adding a giant dead tree. Now you can't hide behind anything with a dead tree, and infamously, I am not very good at it. So it was really a test of courage, and hopefully it would look good at the end, which at this point it was not. So I had to default back to just the pale wood blocks. And of course, in typical Karma fashion, I couldn't help myself from adding pops of color, so I picked the most alien looking block possible, fan coral, and added it everywhere. Now with that all being said and done, we're on to the flyover, and I really hope you enjoyed this build. If you could please leave a like and maybe a comment down below, that would be much appreciated, as they inspire me to take creative leaps like this whenever I can. With that all being said, I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you back here for tomorrow's build. Bye bye.